Welcome to Babes, Balls, and Brands, the show where we keep it real about sports, NIL, and building brands that win. I'm Janet Moreira, lawyer, brand protector, and unapologetic sports mom. I understand the grind on and off the field, and I want to give you the playbook. All right. Hey, everyone. It's Janet Moreira, and we are on Babes, Balls, and Brands. And today I am thrilled to host someone who's become a very influential voice in athlete branding and content strategy, and that is Sam Green. So let me tell you a little bit about Sam Green. Sam is an educator and a strategist in the NIL space, and her journey is anything but linear. She has been an NBA dancer and has worked at ESPN as a video editor and has transitioned into athlete and brand representation, finally founding what's quickly become one of the marquee events in the athlete creator world known as ATHLETE.CON. So AthleteCon brings together student athletes, top platforms, and brands in a hands-on environment. And she helps over a 2-day immersive experience, helps participants content create, introduces them to industry experts, and they not only leave with some great connections, but also with real actionable tools. So in short, Sam Green is not just talking about what makes athletes marketable. She's actually creating the platform and ecosystems to activate it. So I am super excited to have her here today. Sam, thank you so much for being here. I'm really happy to have you.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for doing this and kind of providing an educational platform for others and giving me the platform to share my story.
Amazing. Well, I'm really excited, and let's dive right in. So one of the first things that I ask people since this show is called Babes, Balls, and Brands, let's start with something fun. What's a ballsy or bold move that you've made in your life or career that's really paid off?
Oh, I love it. Starting AthleteCon. Yeah. If you would have asked me, 5 years ago, if starting a convention would have been on my bingo cards, I would have laughed and said absolutely not. But really just saw a gap within the industry. Nothing was tangible for athletes to meet with brands, to facilitate deals, and for brands to walk away with advertisements from athletes. And so started and bootstrapped this thing 2 years ago, all on my own, fundraised the whole thing, played every single role. And now coming up on year 3 here, finally able to really expand, going to Vegas, over 1,000 people. So definitely a risk that paid off, but absolutely ballsy.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, and for those of us who don't know, tell us a little bit more about what AthleteCon is exactly. And also, I'd love to hear if this is just for college athletes or if you're including high schoolers too. Yeah, tell us a little bit more about AthleteCon so people know.
AthleteCon's for any athlete and even industry expert. Although I have a big background and a lot of connections in NIL, it doesn't stop at the collegiate level. So a lot of high school athletes come even with their parents to be able to learn. And we do have professional athletes there as well. You got to think about every single athlete needs to learn how to monetize their brand. And so that's what AthleteCon really is. I call it, the brand monetization convention for athletes. And so it's the first convention to ever have facilitated brand deals in person. So you have 30 plus brands in the room. There's a 4-hour content creation competition where athletes take product in their hands, go and shoot advertisements live, and even compete for cash brand deals, paid internships, and job opportunities. So it's not just a ton of panels, which is great, and there still has some panels, but it's actual hands-on workshops where Instagram is coming and teaching how to actually make money and see an ROI through paid advertisements for these athletes. So start to finish, just number one, walking away with the network that you need to be able to succeed on another level. Number two, walking away with actual cash and paid opportunities. And three, just the skills and the tips to really be able to take your brand to the next level. I've seen so many athletes succeed after this. AthleteCon, it's the room that you need to be in if you really want to take this seriously, not just as an athlete, but as an industry expert as well. And the case studies and the stories that have come out of it, and even the community that's been built, has been quite a blessing.
That sounds incredible. And what I love to hear is that you are giving them practical real life tools. Like they will leave out of there, not just, spitting a bunch of information is great. We all need to be educated, and information is a wonderful thing. But actually taking that information and being able to apply it and using real life tools, and having the experience of doing it, like, role playing, and seeing how you are on camera, and seeing how you interact with products, and kind of getting over the initial nervousness that I'm sure comes with that, is such an empowering tool and system. And I that really resonates with me. I really love that. Now, as I mentioned, you have a very unique path, right? So you've been an NBA dancer, you've worked for ESPN. How do those experiences shape how you approach athlete branding?
That's a great question. I think having the experience of, growing up around sports and the sports industry, I've really developed a mindset that can relate to athletes and all that they're going through. Although everybody's busy in life, the athlete kind of lifestyle is really, really different. They fail publicly in front of thousands of people, and that can apply directly to branding when, your video flops, or, your brand, you don't feel like you're building your brand in the right way. And so I think like my mindset, by kind of navigating and seeing both sides, I've seen it, from dancing, and then, at ESPN more so like the behind the scenes and getting to know a lot of the athletes' stories. I feel
Yeah.
fortunate, although my path felt like this for a long time. Looking back now, it's all those experiences that have, really gotten me here and allowed me to relate to the athletes and understand them from both sides.
Yeah, that's huge. And something that you said just really resonated with me as well, which is, it's such a different time. I don't want to age myself, but I wasn't, if I made mistakes, they weren't on a camera,
Right.
right? And everything about athlete branding is about putting out your authentic story, and being real, and all this. And that includes making mistakes, right? Which can be a very humbling experience. It can be very challenging. Athletes are very competitive. So, losing in any sort of way or failing is not something that they're accustomed to, or like. So, what is some of your advice from these experiences that you've mentioned, and kind of handling some of those pressures that are inherent in athlete branding?
I tell them that everybody starts from zero and from nothing. Like these athletes sometimes feel like they have to have the perfect strategy, or, I had an athlete just yesterday tell me, well, isn't it going to be weird if I just start randomly posting on Instagram? And it's like, well, how else are you going to get started? You got to get started. So, um,
Right.
I think it's crazy to me that these athletes can fail publicly, in front of thousands physically, which is way harder to control, right? There's only so much you can do. There's only so many things you can prepare for. And at the end of the day, you're going to make mistakes in your sport, and that's on a public stage. But yet they're so scared of that digital audience and those digital eyes, when that's actually a little bit more controllable than what their sport actually is. And so I feel like the number one thing I'm constantly saying, or my number one tip, might seem cheesy or cliche, but it's stop caring about what your teammate thinks. Stop caring about, your videos flopping. Like everybody has to start, and you got to hit record and just post, and like not look back. And so again, maybe kind of cliche advice, but that really is step number one, is kind of getting rid of their fear and having the nerve to put themselves out there and to get started.
Well, I mean, sports is such a metaphor for life, right? So what you're saying is, yeah, sure, it applies to athlete branding, but I think that has a bigger application to life in general, right? Is being fearless, and kind of working through that, right? And figuring out how to work through that. Um, Okay, let's shift gears a little bit. So obviously, AthleteCon has built this reputation already in a very short time as being the content convention for athletes. You mentioned it earlier. What gap were you trying to fill for athletes and families when you launched it?
When I work with a family, even like a parent will call me, and they have no idea how to get started in the NIL. And so I feel like there's been a lot of companies or resources that kind of just like pop up with the intent to ride the coattail a little bit off the athletes, or make the money off of athletes. And a
Yeah.
lot of people are just reading flashy headlines that, Arch signs $1 million deal, and that's not the reality of this. Like that's the 1% of the 1%, and that's great, but how do you actually build something that's going to sustain when pay to play is over? And that's what I really focus on, is helping athletes figure out what their goal is when they're out of there, when their name's no longer on the roster, peeling it all the way back to then strategize how to optimize their name and the audience and the fan base that they have while their name's on the roster to build something that's sustaining. And so I had been to close to 30 universities now, going school to school, partnering with brands like JBL and Marriott and teaching athletes hands-on curriculum with the brand in hand, walking them through a content brief, making them publish content live. I've seen what hands-on curriculum can do. I've helped a track athlete go from 2,000 followers to over 100,000 followers in 9 months, and no brand deals to signing a car deal and over 25 deals as a non-revenue generating sport athlete. And so that's why I started AthleteCon. I saw it work and I wanted to do it at scale. I wanted every athlete to be able to have the opportunity to be in the room, to get a little bit of strategy so that it could change their lives. When I was in the NBA, I got burnt out of social media. I felt like all eyes were on me and it was just really overwhelming. And when I retired, I deleted that account and I lost that entire fan base.
Wow.
And, later on down the road, I realized, oh man, like I was just burnt out. Maybe I just needed a break or a little bit more strategy, or, post
Right.
content about the content I cared to post about, not what I think my audience wants to. And so now I'm just on a mission to prevent that problem for other athletes because, traditionally before NIL passed, that track athlete couldn't make money. Number
Right.
one, they're not getting paid to play. And number two, that's it. They would go to
Right.
college. If they don't make it to that next level, that was it. And so there's such a massive opportunity. And a lot of these athletes put their head down and forget to look up a little bit. And then it's, the graduation year and they regret it. And so I started AthleteCon to be that solution, to have all the tips and the tricks with a hands-on approach that I've seen work, to really be able to set these athletes up for life after sports.
Yeah, that's incredible. I I I love what you're saying about giving them the tools, because the thing about NIL is everyone thinks that they have to be very popular or famous or be, a top recruit in order to maximize the opportunities here, and it's just not the case. It is about authentic storytelling and for people getting to know you, and that can be scary, and that's something that you have to choose to want to do, right? But if you choose to want to do it, then there is plenty of opportunity, I think, in that. So I think it's wonderful that you're empowering, not just the 1% of the 1%, but anyone who wants to utilize this platform for opportunity. So I think that's amazing. Now, in terms of where we are today, what do you think really makes an athlete marketable when you're talking? I know it's still about performance to some degree, but in line with what we're saying, is it more about storytelling, content, personality than it is about the sport? Is that what you're
Oh,
seeing?
100%. Some of my athletes
Yeah.
that make the most money aren't, the best in their sport. It's the ones that are putting themselves out there and really define what it is that they're building and what they want. So, do you want to end up opening up a gym? Great. We can plan strategy around that and a ton of different types of content around that. I had an athlete come to me a few years ago saying that she wanted to be a motivational speaker, and I checked out their social media page and she had nothing, related to that. And so we built out a whole plan on, making your own motivational audios that can go viral and other people can use them. Going and volunteering at a local high school and miking yourself up to go speak in front of, athletes. So you have proof of concept that you actually do this for a living. And lo and behold, just another case study. It was a female discus thrower, so not your revenue generating sport and not at a massive SEC school, just ended up running her own event related to motivation and religion. And it was a whole revival night with thousands of people, and all because, she defined what she wanted to be and built strategy around it and didn't care what other people thought and just saw it through consistently for long enough that if you keep going, you'll see that success regardless of your sport.
Yeah, and it takes work, right? What I'm hearing you say is all of these success stories that they're working. They're it doesn't just come to them and then they sit back and wait and see, right? They're actually putting in the work to get out there and to work toward that goal or that thing that they want to do. So I think that's really important to communicate too, that this
Absolutely.
can't just sit back and let things happen. So from the brand side, we've talked about the athlete side. From the brand side, what are you seeing companies are looking for when deciding what athletes to partner with?
You gotta like people gotta understand that brands are hiring athletes to tap into that fan base and into their fans. And so the athletes that are telling their story, they're showcasing their behind the scenes of what life looks like as an athlete. The athletes that are incorporating product organically as a part of their routine or their days are what, brands are really paying for. I conducted actually the first ever NIL study. I went back and I got my master's in media psychology because I saw a lot of brands dumping money into professionally shot production advertisements. And I saw a lot of athletes spending a lot of money to hire videography to, execute these deals. And then I had seen, brands just pay a smaller amount for an athlete to prop up their phone. And so I conducted a neuromarketing eye tracking study where I studied the emotions that were elicited through advertisements. And I proved an athlete eating a protein bar and talking about it literally with their phone propped up with their teammate or their roommate
Yeah.
outperformed a Buick commercial. So brands are
Yeah.
really wanting to tap
Yeah.
into athletes for who they are and for who follows them. Same thing with regular influencers that aren't athletes. You're paying for that fan base, but athletes have that organically because of their name on the roster.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I love that. And I think it's so impressive that you did an actual study on this to track how what's resonating, right? That's amazing. Now, I know I read somewhere that at AthleteCon, your first AthleteCon, every single athlete walked away with a paid partnership. That's amazing. Did you expect that? Number one. And number two, what do you think made those athletes stand out?
Yeah, so the constant feedback that I get from brands and industry experts that are in the room with AthleteCon is you have the right athletes in this room, Sam. Like they're the ones that want to work. Seriously, they end up with full-time jobs and as employees like down the road. And the first time they ever met was at AthleteCon. So I think I set maybe a standard of you do have to want this to kind of be in the room and take it seriously. And I think that it shows through and through. So no, I did not expect every single athlete to walk away with a brand deal. Um, Obviously, that's always my hope, but that's not always the case or the reality when there's that many athletes in a room. But
Yeah.
brands that day, the day of, decided to expand their offerings to every athlete because they were so impressed by every single athlete that was in the room and by just the energy and the commitment level. And so I think it just goes to speak to, the authentic energy and the genuine care that everybody has in that room to be in the room and to learn more. So that was a very pleasant surprise, year one.
Yeah, and it says a lot about you and what you're doing. I've got goosebumps talking about it actually because it says a lot about you and what you're curating and what you're bringing together in terms of people and I just think it's really awesome. Really, hats off to you. Um, yeah. So we're in this era now where schools are directly paying athletes, right? And we're also seeing reports of schools using NIL perks and partnerships to kind of get around some new revenue sharing caps, right? For families, do you have any thoughts on what some red flags may be to watch out for when schools are making these promises of NIL perks and partnerships?
Yeah, you got to be very, very careful. I can't speak to the legality of a lot of this. That's what
Yeah.
you're here for. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of good NIL attorneys within the industry that can set you guys up to make sure that you're safe. Be very careful. Seriously, like I've heard of nightmare stories and contracts with revenue sharing models that, athletes are getting trapped and kind of stuck into things or false promises are being made. So I'd say just be very clear on what's actually written in the contract and not just verbal promises. It's very easy to go to a school, fall in love with it, be recruit. A lot of schools have recruiting down to a T on, exactly where to walk by at the exact right time. So there's more students or X, Y, and Z. And talk is cheap at the end of the day. You can verbally be promised one thing, but unless
Right.
it's written and signed. So I would say, the easy answer is honestly just spend the money. If we're talking, a serious life-changing commitment or life-changing deal, you want to, spend a little bit to make sure that you're locked in and super, super safe. So really just, kind of like creating a team around you.
Oof,
You,
Sam,
for a lot of the
I hear.
key, having, legal support,
Yeah,
and so many people in this industry that are
yeah,
willing to help. Like it doesn't have to be $1 million team. You don't have to spend a lot of money. There's so many lawyers that will
yeah.
even look at a contract for free just to help an athlete. And there's a lot of like resources internally, even at schools, with legal departments and stuff like that. So I'd say the more that you can just kind of think of every avenue within this space, from, IP to contracts to brand building, kind of like building that army around you, you'll feel a lot safer as a parent letting your kid kind of go into the wild, wild west.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you are preaching to the choir, girl, because I say this all the time. It's like I mean, it's a theme across all of the podcasts I've done, and every meeting, you have to have a team off the field. It's essential. And what I see is that people are very hesitant to spend, especially with counsel, because what you're saying is, unless it's in writing, it doesn't exist. Unless it's in writing, you don't have anything. And that's just the truth, because people can renege on contracts all the time if they're just speaking promises into the air. What I've seen is that people are a bit hesitant to reach out to counsel because they don't want to spend
Right.
money, and lawyers are expensive, and that is true, right? It is expensive to hire a lawyer. It can be, but it's always more expensive in the end.
Yeah.
It's always more expensive if you try to carve back something that you've given up that you didn't understand, or try to get advice on something that you're already locked into. That's where it gets very expensive. And so to me, it's about getting the right people with the right experience on the team, and then really strategizing and figuring it out. That to me is, you're winning at that point. You are winning. So
And I feel like,
yeah.
a lot of people listen and be like, well, literally, I don't have the money for a team. And, one thing I did early on in my career is a lot of trade offs, right? And
Yeah.
you build these longer term relationships. I mean, if you tell a lawyer that, look, like, I just need help with this first contract, but
Yeah.
help me now, I'm going to keep you around. I'm going to be signing more deals. Like, when money comes in, you'll be my official lawyer, and you can get a lot of help and build a team resourcefully, and oftentimes on a volunteer for free basis. It doesn't mean you're going to have staff working for you 24/7 for free, but a lot of people will really do the favor if you build the really and nurture the relationship. So
Yeah, and that brings us to another point, which is like, you have to be okay with advocating for yourself, right? And I think it's one of the things that social media does in terms of, creating the opportunity for you to speak, and to speak in front of an audience. And that's part of what advocating for yourself is, right? Is like being okay with saying, "Hey, I need help, and this is where I need help, and, would you do this X, Y, and Z for me?" Okay, by the way, I'm loving this conversation. I really appreciate it.
thank you.
It's so good, and it's so I just love what you're doing, and I love that this is, like, real. You're doing real stuff. It's practical, and it's something that you can utilize. It's useful. It's so useful, and it's such a divergence from some of the stuff that's out there, and you're really touching upon so many things that, that matter to these families, and
Thank you.
anyway, I'm really it's really great. Um, I would love to hear, what you're seeing in terms of sort of these partnerships that are happening. I'm assuming, I know I know you're not a lawyer, and I know that you probably work with counsel, but in terms of what you're seeing in terms of these NIL deals and partnerships with athletes and brands, are you looking at mostly 1-year agreements, multi-year agreements? Um, you know, what's happening in that way right now in terms of what you're seeing?
So I look at NIL as two different things. Pay to play is one beast and one monster with revenue share that, I'm not going to fully touch on, but, real NIL is, 4 out of 5 of these brand deals are brands paying athletes to make advertisements. And I think the headlines honestly do a pretty bad job of showing the reality of the industry. I think a lot of the headlines are showing those year-long contracts between, the quarterback and Chipotle and these national big brands, and it's $1 million deal. And the reality is a lot of these deals are one-off deals, one time, testing the waters,
Yeah.
get paid a couple $100 to make a video and you move on. And so that's a little bit of the strategy that I try and help teach the athletes, is how to convert one-off deals into longer term relationships so that they have decent money coming in and can kind of focus on being an athlete and not have to go get a job in the middle of all this. So no, the reality is it's actually mostly one-off deals unless you know how to convert and build these relationships long term.
Right, right. Like a short campaign or a small project based NIL deals. It sounds like is the majority of the deals, which makes sense, really. Um, Now, with so many athletes, competing for these deals, what's your best advice for a young athlete to stand out without burning out? Because I know you mentioned that you experienced some burnout yourself. What is some of your advice for someone who wants to get started but is, a little bit timid or afraid of doing too much, maybe?
I'd say number one, you got to define your goal. Like, and it's, again, that seems cliche too, but it's really step number one. Do you want to turn this into a genuine business? Do you want to just go viral and you only care about growing your following? Maybe it's somewhere in between. Some athletes don't care at all to go viral. Then that's okay. You don't have to be as consistent as the person that does. You maybe just need to be a little bit more organized on what kind of content you are putting out there and focus on kind of quality over quantity. If you want to be, the next YouTuber or TikTok, you got to be posting 24/7. And so step number one is starting there. Step number two is finding kind of strategic ways to stay a little bit more consistent that don't allow you to burn out. So
Yeah.
like these days, half the viral content is the quick hitting 7-second clip with the trending audio and tweaking the text on the screen to be relatable to life as an athlete. Okay, athletes, you work out how many times a week? Pull your phone out for, one workout, and now you have a million clips that you can access. You can schedule things ahead of time so you don't burn out. And then, because speaking back to how you said, it's a competitive landscape, how do you stand out? It's important to start structuring your brand more so as a business, right? Things like, having links that are actually hyperlinked in your Instagram bio so that brands can actually reach out to you and you're not expecting them to just DM you, or, creating a brand portfolio that has content examples of the types of content that you've created for other brands. Writing a description in there about you, showcasing all the logos of the brands that you've worked with in the past. Starting an email signature so that, when you stand out in their inbox, when they have such a flooded inbox of just paragraphs and paragraphs, hyperlinking things in your emails so that they stand out. So again, just kind of converting this into more so of a business rather than approaching it as, oh, I'm just an athlete creator.
Yeah. Well, and you're walking through some of the things that you assist with. I would love to hear sort of your process for, someone that wants to engage with you to assist them with this strategy and with this process. Tell me what that looks like. I come to you, I'm a young athlete, I want to work with you. What does that look like for me?
Yeah, well, number one, you better come to AthleteCon. Just kidding. But,
I'm
I
I'm already thinking, like, when is it? Is it during season? I'm bringing my kids.
right, you
Yeah.
have to third, fourth, and fifth.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay,
so
we'll ask that again at the end. Okay, but continue. Yeah.
So I customize everything, to be honest. Step number one starts like just getting on a call with me so I can really understand what it is that you want to build. And then I take that information and I map it out into a custom strategy plan from things like a list of brands that I think that you should reach out to based on your interests, a complete custom social media strategy so you have ideas and know what you're actually waking up and building. I give you a brand portfolio that you can kind of customize that actually works to help land more brand deals. So it does definitely depend on what, people are looking for. I have, a team that helps athletes build out websites so that they can, continue to present themselves as a business and give brands more information on them. So really start to finish, kind of all in brand guide and how to get started.
Okay, and do you contact some of these brands also for these folks? Is that part of the process, or are you really encouraging the athlete to sort of make that initial connection? Because that, I would imagine that also creates that authentic connection, right?
I am not an agent,
Yeah,
so I'm not the one actually typically facilitating deals and taking a cut.
yeah.
However, I have a Rolodex of brands. I actually help brands on brand campaigns. So I'll source athletes and I'll oversee the creative on a lot of campaigns, things like Bird Scooter, for a July 4th campaign, Nike, Meta. So I come with opportunities,
Yeah.
if you're kind of within my athlete network, it absolutely does come with NIL deals, but I intentionally don't like only seek out deals because I feel like it kind of like excludes some, athletes, and it might not be fair. But I also have an Instagram broadcast channel that I drop NIL deals in 24/7. So definitely comes with it, but not an
Yeah.
active agent taking a cut off the athlete.
Well, that's amazing. And I wanted to ask you too, so since this is your advice for you've given advice about, how to stand out. I want to know if you've seen some mistakes that athletes are making in content or in partnerships that can actually hurt their long-term marketability. And what's your advice when those mistakes are made?
Well, everybody makes mistakes. So you just got to roll with the punches. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just reality here. You got to get started, and, you can't be perfect before you start. But a lot of mistakes that I see are athletes not knowing how to structure their offerings. So things like just saying, oh, I'll make you a TikTok. Okay, you can make one video, post it on 3 different platforms, and charge 10 times the amount. You can charge for collaboration invites. You can charge for Instagram stories and adding links. A lot of athletes don't know that you can tag products for these brands. So now people can actually shop the brand's products through your content. That's important. Um, so I would say, again, like kind of the lack of structuring and like a business is the biggest mistake that I see.
Yeah, and can you help athletes in terms of what they should charge for some of these things? I know obviously that's driven in part by their level of popularity, but are you able to give guidance to these young athletes about, hey, this is what you could charge for X, Y, and Z? Because I think that's super helpful and a missing component in a lot of the education to athletes, right?
100%. I deal with that all the time. And that's a
Yeah.
big piece of even AthleteCon as well, is like, you got to know how to turn this into a business. And so helping athletes with things like a rate sheet on, how they can actually bundle it and then send it out to a brand, so brands even know, what they're dealing with. So yeah, that's absolutely a big
Wow.
part of
That's
what I do.
huge. That's huge. Again, one of the things that I love is that you're giving these young people real, practical, usable advice that they can take in and utilize from day one. So it's really great. Now you've seen the industry from the inside as well, and you are part of the industry. What do you think that athletes and families should be looking for in terms of an agent, a marketing rep, a brand strategist, a lawyer? What are some of the things that you think are the qualities to look for in those in that team that we talked about building?
Well, not to be contradictory, but like I guess agents specifically, like you got to get started before you even kind of like pick your head up for that. A lot of athletes want an agent because let's be honest, they don't want to do as much work. They want the agent to go out and facilitate all these deals for them. But unless you're marketable, or unless you're the 1% of the 1% on the field or in your sport, these agents don't have a reason to work with you. You have to give them a reason to. And so you got to do the work first. You got to figure out, what kind of content you're posting. You got to figure out how to land a deal or two. So a good place to get started is there's a lot of NIL marketplaces out there that actually facilitate deals between brands and athletes. And a lot of them don't have a big dollar amount to start, but it's at least getting you started with a big name brand. A lot of times CVS or Crocs are on these platforms, and now you can really leverage that to other brands to be able to charge more. So step number one is, again, mapping out that game plan of, as a family, like, what do you guys want to do? What do you want to build here? And then building the team around, the work or the strategy that you've already put in.
Well, I love that, and it puts the responsibility on the athlete to do some of this initial work, like you said. Where is the line you think between when an athlete should handle some of this on their own versus when they should bring on somebody to actually help them with this?
When it's very clear, like brands are like inbound and it's not
Yeah,
just you, outbound, or when you're actually making consistent money and learning how to, actually charge these brands, you'll know, like
yeah.
you'll literally know when it gets to be too much. Or a lot of agents end up approaching the athlete if they, are marketable. And so I would say, once it becomes literally too much and you've actually landed enough
Yeah.
deals to prove that marketability, then it's time.
Yeah, I love the distinction of inbound versus outbound, right? When people are coming to you, that might be the time to start really thinking about your team. Um, Now, looking 3 to 5 years out, what trends do you feel like are going to be shaping athlete branding and endorsement deals and brand partnerships?
Very loud personalities, I feel like. Every time I get on social media, if someone's bold and really putting themselves out there and fearless, it's contagious. I think that I've said this a million times, but I really believe we haven't even scratched the surface of what NIL is going to look like. Athletes within these past 4 years that have partaken in NIL have been naturally athletes, and they learned how to make content. They learned how to become brandable because of the
Yeah.
opportunity in front of them. They didn't necessarily as much grow up on social media or in this digital landscape. It's these kids or babies right now that are sitting in high chairs, eating Cheerios, consuming YouTube shorts, that are going to be the future of NIL, in my opinion. They're, when I ask my nephews what they want to be when they grow up, they say they want to be YouTubers like Jake and Logan Paul. That was
Yeah.
never a thing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of athletes are going to start playing sports to actually build their brand. And I said this the other day, and my husband told me it's a bold statement, but I like to be bold. So I really believe sports entertainment's going to make a shift to more so like entertainment sports, where bold personalities in the entertainment is kind of like what's like leading the way. I mean, you look at Dart, right? And Cam, like they're younger and they're kind of the first that really built a brand in the NIL space that went mega viral at the collegiate level, and now they made it to the pros, and now Dart's in his chains and landing all these cool NIL deals, and it's because he's cool and he's putting himself out there. And
Yeah.
so I think that's really the future of this.
Well, and as I mentioned, I have two boys that are teenagers and they play sports, and I think that shift is already happening. You see it on the fields with athletes dressing up, when they're playing 7-on-7 or wearing interesting gear, or they're doing things to really bolster their personality as opposed to, I mean, they're also playing the sport, but it's a different thing that I haven't witnessed before, and that's happening. So I think you're right, and I think that's going to continue happening in a way, in a more prominent way, let's say. Um, Such great content. So in if you're an athlete or a parent listening right now, right, and they're feeling overwhelmed, what's one small concrete step that they can take today to start building a stronger, more marketable brand?
Probably go to ChatGPT, literally talk through what you're struggling with, what you're looking to build, and that might be controversial. A lot of people are scared of AI or think it's going to eliminate a lot of jobs, but it can at least help you kind of structure your own thoughts or your own steps and your own goals. I'm not saying leave it there, because then find people that can kind of help you develop it further. AI is still AI at the end of the day. It's not a human really sitting down and helping you, but it can at least organize your thoughts and things even into a getting started game plan, and turn it into a PDF for you that you can wake up and look at every single day. A checklist for you. So honestly, the cheapest, most affordable way that you could wake up today and actually get started and organize your thoughts would to be using ChatGPT.
Don't be afraid. It's here, guys. It's here to stay. Well, thank you so much, Sam, for joining. I really loved this conversation. Where can listeners connect with you, learn more about AthleteCon? Give us your essentials, your information.
Yeah, so come join us in Las Vegas June 3rd, 4th, and 5th for AthleteCon 3.0. Going to be a really big time with a lot of athletes and a lot of big name brands already committed, and all the social media platforms coming. So you can purchase your tickets and reserve your spot at athletecon.io. And then to connect with me, the easiest way is probably hit me up on DMs and on Instagram, which my Instagram handle is Sam B. Green.
All right, amazing. Well, thank you again. One more question before we wrap. How are you feeling today? More babes, balls, or brands? And tell me why.
Oh, babes, because I don't often get to talk to badass females like you.
Oh, amazing. Same. I love it. Well, thank you again. And yeah, check it out. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for hanging with me on Babes, Balls, and Brands. Keep grinding and protecting your brand because your story matters and it's just getting started. Stay focused, stay fierce, and remember to always bet on yourself. Till next time.